The late son's widow, Tiffany, grinned as she began to speak. I've decided to marry this company's president. An unfamiliar man stood at the front door. He had a flashy look and seemed rather suspicious. Tiffany's gaze then shifted to her grandchildren, Ashley, Ryan, and Kyle. So, I'll leave the rest to you. Wait a minute. What do you mean, leave the rest to you? These children are yours, aren't they? It seemed she lacked any maternal instincts. As I called out to her, she turned around and spoke again. My children? Before that, remember they're also your sons. I don't need anything from my past with him, including these kids. Got it, Grandma? My head went blank with rage. I didn't want the children to have anything to do with such a woman ever again. There was much more I wanted to say to her, but I wished she would leave immediately. Are you sure about this? I'm happy to take the children in. She walked away without looking back, seemingly uninterested. Since that day 13 years ago, the doorbell rang on a peaceful spring afternoon. Who could it be at this time on my day off? I got up and checked the intercom screen to see a woman with a furious expression standing there. The moment Kyle appeared, noisy voices demanding, "Give back my children," and "Give me my share," came through the intercom. Kyle responded calmly, and the noisy woman suddenly became meek. Kyle? It's Kyle, right? At that moment, I realized it was Tiffany. Grandma? Are you there? Kyle's voice echoed at the front door. Yes, I'm here. As I walked to the door while replying, there stood Kyle with a smile, and Ryan looked down. When we got home, Mom was gone again. Oh. But she left a note. I received the crumpled note that the children's mother, Tiffany, had left behind. I thought, again. She often left the children with me and went out. The grandchildren entered the house, and I began preparing to leave. Are you going to pick up Ashley? At Kyle's question, I nodded and headed to pick up the youngest, Ashley, from kindergarten. I am Debbie Owen, almost 60 years old. The children who came to my house are the children of my son Sam and his wife, Tiffany. The eldest, Kyle, the second son, Ryan, and the eldest daughter, Ashley. Their home is just a 10-minute walk from mine, and they often come over after school. The three of them are very fond of me, and I feel blessed. Life is good, isn't it? Grandma, did you say something? As we walked home from kindergarten, holding hands, Ashley reacted to my sighing monologue. I was just thinking about what to make for dinner tonight. And I ended up speaking out loud. I smiled back, and Ashley returned the smile with her own. I always welcomed the grandchildren to my house. However, I increasingly questioned Tiffany's actions. I once asked her why she frequently left the children and went out. She said she had to help out at a friend's store. But the frequency of these occasions hasn't decreased. I don't oppose her working part-time, but it always seems to be just helping out. Grandma, you look worried. Are you still thinking about dinner? Ashley's voice brought me back to my senses. Yes, about dinner. What would you like to eat, Ashley? Hamburg steak. I mustn't let the children sense my unease. If they knew I had doubts about their mother, it would only make them anxious. I decided to discuss it with Sam. As I focused on enjoying my time with the grandchildren, Tiffany came to pick them up just before 8 p.m. I tried to tell her about their day, but she seemed in a hurry and barely listened. Thank you. With that, she took the three children back home. I thought, at least she thanked me. I began cleaning up the quiet room. I had been waiting for a chance to talk to Sam about Tiffany. And it soon came when I hurt my back in an accident. It was difficult to stand or walk, and taking care of the young grandchildren became challenging. When Sam heard about the accident, he came right away, and I broached the subject of Tiffany. What? Mom has been taking care of the kids. It seemed Sam was unaware that Tiffany had been leaving the children to help a friend. Sorry, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it. Sam looked puzzled, but after I advised him to avoid conflict, he reluctantly agreed and told me. Just rest, okay, before leaving unsatisfied. I quickly contacted Tiffany to let her know that I couldn't take care of the children for a while. Is that so? What should I do? But it can't be helped, I understand. She seemed troubled, but given the circumstances, she had no choice but to accept it. I sighed with relief after hanging up the phone. A month later, my back had improved significantly. It seems I'll have a long-term relationship with this back pain. But I can manage to walk to and from Ashley's kindergarten. When I started feeling better, I suddenly became worried about my grandchildren. I tried contacting Tiffany for an update, but it just rang without answer. It was past 7 p.m. It was a time they should all be home, possibly busy preparing dinner. A strange premonition made me uneasy. I thought, it must just be bad timing, right? I tried to dismiss the bad feeling, but I couldn't focus on the TV that was on. There was also no callback. Since it was no use worrying endlessly, I decided to call their house directly. After several rings, I heard Kyle's voice. Hello, Kyle? Are you doing well? Grandma? Is your back better now? Kyle, who just entered 4th grade this spring, is a mischievous but caring boy. Just as I felt a warmth in my heart, I heard someone crying in the background. It was probably Ashley. I can hear Ashley crying. Is everything okay? Where are your dad and mom? The strange unease I had felt before calling returned. Dad's at work. Mom should be back soon. What a situation. My bad premonition was coming true. I was at a loss for words when Kyle proudly started speaking. We can stay home alone until Mom comes back now, without having to go to Grandma's. Kyle seemed fine, but I could still hear Ashley crying. She must be feeling insecure. I was also worried about Ryan. That's great, but it sounds like Ashley is crying, so I'll come over right now. After hanging up, I immediately headed to my grandchildren's house. On the way, I contacted Sam. He was on his way home from work and would be there in about 30 minutes. I've never been so grateful to live nearby. 10 minutes later, I arrived at their house and was shocked by what I saw inside. There were microwave meal boxes left on the table. Is this really what my growing grandchildren had for dinner? And in the living room, Ashley was sitting and sobbing, with her clothes and the carpet wet. Apparently from spilling a drink. Upon seeing me, Ashley staggered to her feet and approached me. I rushed to hug her. Ryan was holding a towel, looking guilty as he watched me and Ashley. Ashley spilled her juice, and Ryan and I were wiping it up. Kyle handed the wet towel to Ryan, who then went to wash it. It's okay, now, Ryan. I held his hand as he silently scrubbed the carpet with the towel. Grandma will take care of the rest. You did well. As I spoke kindly, Ryan's eyes welled up with tears. Now, Ryan, please help Ashley change her clothes. Ashley, go change with Ryan. As the children settled down to watch TV, I cleaned up the table. I couldn't believe that such things were happening without my knowledge. According to Kyle, when they come home from school, their mother isn't there. And just a packed meal is left. This happens only on the days when Sam returns home late. I couldn't shake my distrust towards Tiffany. If today's incident was a one-time occurrence, it might be forgivable. But if it keeps repeating, it's inexcusable. How should I stop this from happening? As I was thinking, Sam finally arrived home, clearly having rushed back. Dad. Welcome back. Sam silenced Kyle, who looked eager to talk, and turned to me. Thanks for today. I'll talk to Tiffany about this. Mom, you go home and rest. I could sense the intense anger emanating from Sam. He must be feeling the same way I do. It's time for them to discuss this as a couple. There's no need for me to intervene. Trusting Sam, I decided to return home. The next morning, I received a call from Tiffany. Mother, I'm sorry about yesterday. Her voice was unusually subdued, and I could tell she was reflecting. Just as I was about to remind her of her responsibilities, I heard something unbelievable. There was an urgent matter yesterday, and I couldn't answer the phone. The phone. Isn't she supposed to be reflecting on leaving the children alone? You called me yesterday, didn't you? Right, I remembered. I had called her before going directly to their house. The events that followed were so shocking that I had completely forgotten. Ah. Yes, that was it. So, was there something? It seems Tiffany doesn't know I showed up at her house yesterday. Hasn't she talked with Sam? Hasn't Sam told you anything? I bravely asked, but Tiffany said she hadn't heard anything. Probably Sam had tactfully not mentioned me. But more importantly, by the way, my back is getting much better. So I think I can start taking care of the kids again. If I leave it to her, the grandchildren might end up neglected again. So, I might as well take care of them myself. That was my plan, but Tiffany's response was unexpected. Ah. The kids are fine. I've settled down too, so I'll be at home properly. I might ask for help again if there's an emergency like yesterday. Who says she'll be at home properly? I had to swallow the words that almost escaped my throat. They were supposed to have discussed things last night. If I say something unnecessary now, it might just complicate things further. I gave a non-committal response and hung up the phone. However, I felt that I shouldn't believe a word she said. That evening, I dialed my grandchildren's home phone number again. According to Kyle, who answered, Sam was at work and Tiffany was out as usual. Hey, Kyle, if no one is home like before, come to Grandma's house. I'll talk to your mom about it, so don't worry. Kyle seemed a bit confused at first, but then responded cheerfully. Whether he's being considerate of his mother or if she has strictly told them to stay alone. I couldn't tell. But now, they won't have to feel alone. I decided to make sure they had dinner and a bath at my house and sent them home by 8 p.m. However, there's a limit to how long I can keep this up. I wondered what kind of discussion they had when the children were left alone at home last time. Later, I managed to find out from Kyle when Sam's days off were and sent him an email. Sam came to my house right away, and I shared everything with him. That night, I did talk properly with Tiffany. She seemed remorseful, and I thought mentioning your concerns might shock her further. So I kept it to myself. That night, Tiffany, surprised by Sam being home before her, apologized profusely. She said there was an emergency, and it couldn't be helped. She honestly admitted that she frequently left the children alone to be considerate towards me. And they promised that from now on, they would avoid such situations and contact Sam if anything happened. I can't believe it's happening again. Sam seemed shocked. It's not surprising, feeling betrayed by his wife he trusted. But then he made a resolute declaration to me. I'll talk to her again this weekend. This time I'll definitely settle things, so can I ask you to look after the kids for a few more days? I considered joining the conversation, but Sam declined. What exactly does Sam mean by settling things? I waited for the weekend with frustration. On the weekend, Sam brought the kids over to my house. Probably because he didn't want them to hear their parents' discussion. But something seemed off. As soon as they entered from the porch to the living room, Sam said something unexpected. Tiffany, this morning, I woke up and Tiffany was gone. I was stunned by this turn of events. Anyway, I need to go find Tiffany to have a discussion. With that, Sam rushed out of the house. The three kids looked anxiously as they watched their father leave. "He'll be back soon. Today's a day off, why don't we go out somewhere?" I also wanted to distract myself, but the three of them just sat there quietly. They probably weren't in the mood to go far. Since staying home wouldn't help, we decided to go to the nearby park instead. After playing in the park and eating lunch, there was still no word from Sam. I tried calling him several times, but there was no response. Just as I was about to start preparing dinner, the usually quiet Ryan tugged at my clothes. "Ryan. What's the matter?" Normally, he doesn't initiate conversation or move around much. He must have something he wants to tell me. Just as I was about to listen to him, the phone rang suddenly. Just a moment. After speaking to Ryan, I picked up the phone. "Is this the Owen residence?" "This is the police station speaking." A cold sweat broke out all over my body. "We need to talk to you about your son, Sam." Sam had been involved in an accident and was taken to the hospital. As I was about to rush to the hospital, not just Ryan, but Kyle and Ashley too, all three stared at me. Their mother had suddenly disappeared, and now their father was taken to the hospital. I couldn't leave them alone at home. "Everyone, come with me." "It's okay, I won't leave you." We all held hands, got into the car, and headed to the hospital. I drove with a single hope that he would be okay. We soon arrived at the hospital and I explained the situation at the reception. The staff led us not to a hospital room but to a morgue. My steps felt heavy. Could there be some mistake? I reached the door but couldn't bring myself to move forward. "Is Daddy here?" Ashley was only 4 years old. She didn't understand what was happening. But Kyle and Ryan seemed to realize this wasn't a normal room. "Grandma." Ryan called out to me fearfully. Responding to his voice, I put my hand on the door. Someone lay on the bed, covered with a white cloth over their face. "Kyle, please take care of Ryan and Ashley. You might not want to see this." I felt like I was losing my mind, but I couldn't afford to panic in front of my grandchildren. Once I made sure the grandchildren were in the hallway, I gently lifted the white cloth covering the face. I could not mistake the face of my own child. This person was undoubtedly my son, Sam, the father of my grandchildren. Kyle came to my side as I collapsed to my knees and silently clung to my arm. "Ryan and Ashley?" "Ryan and Ashley are in the hallway." As if he had heard my thoughts, Kyle answered. I hugged him tightly. The hardest hit by this were the children. I needed to be strong. However, my tears wouldn't stop. Kyle also hugged me back, and we ended up wetting each other's shoulders. How long had we been like this? Unable to wait any longer, Ryan and Ashley approached us. Seeing their usually cheerful brother crying, Ryan seemed to understand what had happened. "Dad's not going to wake up?" Ashley's innocent words made my eyes well up again. Not just Kyle, but Ryan, Ashley, and we all sobbed together. Then, someone entered the room. Click-clacking her heels, it was Tiffany who approached Sam. Ignoring the crying me and the children, she roughly checked Sam's face. "Mom." Kyle called out to her. But she just snorted and left without saying anything. I hugged Kyle again. In my arms, he was shaking. After that, we lost contact with Tiffany. She was supposed to organize the funeral, but I had to take it upon myself to do it. The children started living with me, and a month after Sam's funeral, I was preparing dinner when the doorbell rang. The intercom showed Tiffany, wearing heavy makeup. Ashley noticed and ran to the door. "Mom." Following Ashley, I went to the door and saw her attempting to hug Tiffany. But Tiffany pushed Ashley away as if she was brushing off something filthy. "How could you do that?" I shouted instinctively. Kyle and Ryan peered from the living room, their eyes wide open. Ryan ran to Ashley, who seemed to have fallen on her bottom from the shock and was crying. Kyle stood next to me, glaring at their mother. Tiffany glanced at the children, smirking, and then she spoke. "I've decided to marry this company's president." A strange man stood at the doorway, looking flashy and somewhat sleazy. "Now I'm going to be a celebrity too. I think it's best to leave unnecessary things behind in my new life." Her gaze turned to Ashley, Ryan, and then Kyle. "So, you take care of the rest." She winked at me and was about to briskly walk out. "Wait a minute." I couldn't hold back and called out to her. "What do you mean, take care of the rest? These children are yours, aren't they? Doesn't she have any maternal instincts? You didn't even come to Sam's funeral. Are you out of your mind?" As I spoke, she turned back and opened her mouth again. "My children? Before that, remember they're also your son's children. He caused me a lot of trouble. But, it's good that he's gone." I was stunned. Gone, and that's good. My anger boiled over. Yes, it's good. I had a hefty insurance policy on him. I was figuring out how to get that insurance money, but now that he's gone, it's less trouble for me. I was speechless. And as I said before, I don't need anything from my past with him, including these kids. Got it, Grandma? My head went blank with rage. Yet, all I felt was a strong desire never to let her near the children again. Although there was still so much I wanted to say to her, I wished she would leave immediately. "If that's okay with you, then I'm happy to take the children." I squeezed Kyle's hand next to me. "Just leave and never show your face to us again." Kyle and I stepped forward to protect Ryan and Ashley, who were crouching down. "I'll do just that." With apparent disinterest, she left one last word and walked away without looking back. "Kyle, could you bring some salt from the kitchen?" I had never done such a thing, but I felt an overwhelming urge to throw something. I threw the salt. Kyle brought me outside the door vigorously. The next day, I went to the office to start the adoption process for the grandchildren. 13 years have passed since that day. The wounds of children who lost their father and were abandoned by their mother have not healed easily. I poured my love into them, always staying by their side. Gradually, the children began to smile again, turning their painful reality into a thing of the past. On a serene spring afternoon, I was leisurely sipping tea. As I dozed off while vaguely watching the TV, the doorbell rang. Who could it be at this time on my day off? I stood up to check the intercom, and there stood a woman with a furious expression. Just as I was about to respond, Kyle came from behind and stopped me. "I'll handle this." In his hand was a voice recorder. The moment Kyle appeared, loud voices demanding, "Give back my children," and "Hand over my share," came through the intercom. Listening to Kyle's calm response, the noisy woman suddenly became meek. "Kyle? Is that you, Kyle?" That's when I realized. The woman was Tiffany. Her hair and clothes were shabby, and she wore no makeup, making her hard to recognize. But Kyle had known from the start. "I've had a change of heart. I realized there's nothing more important than you guys. A mother and her children shouldn't be apart. It's not too late, let's live together." Kyle remained silent until Tiffany finished speaking, then he slowly began to speak. "You came here for the money, didn't you?" His voice was filled with such disdain that it was hard to believe he was speaking to his mother, whom he hadn't seen in a long time. "What's wrong, brother?" Ryan, who had come out of his room upon hearing the commotion, clenched his teeth when he saw his mother's face on the intercom screen. Like Kyle, he glared at his mother through the screen. "Just for money, you say? But you and Ryan have worked so hard together, haven't you? And to think you've even rebuilt this house so splendidly. It seems Tiffany's visit was prompted by an interview with Kyle, Ryan, and Ashley that appeared in a magazine. Since separating from her, Kyle and Ryan had been obsessively dedicated to their studies and had started their own company 2 years ago. Kyle became a well-known figure when he became a CEO and achieved success while still in college. However, the public story didn't tell everything. Ryan had contributed significantly behind the scenes. After finishing high school, Ryan didn't go to college but instead squeezed out every bit of knowledge and wisdom to start a business with Kyle. Meanwhile, Ashley was scouted on the street in middle school and started as a reading model, later debuting in the entertainment industry as an idol. Her cute appearance and charming personality made her a frequent presence on television. She was in the studio for TV shooting from morning to day. The success of the brothers who founded a company at a young age, and their sister, a popular idol, naturally attracted media attention. The interview article in a women's magazine stirred even more public interest. And there was talk of Kyle publishing an autobiography. "Hey, Kyle, are you listening?" Tiffany tried to coax Kyle with a soothing voice, but Kyle coldly shot back. "Our parent isn't someone like you." "If I had to say." Kyle glanced briefly at me. "She not only supported our living but also provided the startup capital for our company." Ryan put his arm around my shoulder. "And she has been with Ashley from morning till night, supporting her entertainment activities. Grandma is our real mother." I was moved to tears. But Tiffany, trampling on my feelings, persisted. "Grandma as a mother? She'll soon pass away anyway. I'll live longer, so I'll take over this house, as a mother should." What a horrible thing to say. Although Kyle had been calm, he couldn't contain his anger any longer. His voice grew increasingly rough. "This house was built to protect the people we care about. There's no way I'm giving it to someone else." I almost forgot to mention, but this conversation is being recorded. I'll use it when I write my autobiography. Don't worry, I'll make sure to portray you in all your ugliness. With that, he switched off the intercom. Yet, I could still hear Tiffany making a racket at the front door. As I wondered how to get rid of her, Ryan gave me a thumbs up, holding his smartphone. I called the police. Soon after, a police car arrived with its siren blaring, and Tiffany was quickly taken away. But she might come back again someday. Worried, Ryan muttered quietly. No, she shouldn't be able to enter this world for a while. Confused by what he meant, Kyle and Ryan explained to me that Tiffany was involved in Sam's accident. On the day Sam went out to look for Tiffany, he had managed to track her down. However, what he saw was Tiffany walking arm in arm with an unfamiliar man. Stunned, Sam continued to follow her. But he was suddenly struck by a speeding car and never returned. How do you know all this? I asked Ryan. In Dad's belongings. We found his smartphone with photos of that woman and the man she was with. That's when we decided. We resolved to succeed and be happy as the best revenge for our father. Kyle spoke with a clear and determined expression. She's finally been arrested. It's been a long time. The two clasped hands, reinforcing their new resolve. Now, it's our time. We're going to be even happier from here on out. The man Tiffany remarried was the president of a company engaged in fraudulent activities. And she was arrested for her involvement in the fraud. Furthermore, it seems an employee of that company was driving the car that hit Sam. That employee, who could not stand up to his boss and was forced to do dirty work, had filed a lawsuit against him. It seems the life insurance money from Sam was also used for the company's purposes. But none of that mattered to me anymore. Sam's grievances were avenged by his children. Their success and happiness would only continue. Even though I'm already happy, they still say they want to repay their debts to me. No more looking back. As long as I live, I will walk with them towards a bright future. So, Sam. Please wait a little longer in heaven. On a clear day, under the bright blue sky, I spoke these words aloud.